Summary of A Pair of Silk Stockings by Chopin. Mrs. Sommers is surprised and happy to have received the small gain. She can't take her mind off of the question of how to spend the huge $15. Early in the morning, Mrs. Sommers decides that the money should be used to buy clothes for her kids, Janie, Mag, and the boys. She carefully and methodically makes a mental shopping list of all the things she needs. Just the thought of seeing her kids in new, stylish clothes makes Mrs. Sommers so excited for her shopping trip the next day that she can't sleep all night. That night, Mrs. Sommers is too tired to start her shopping bout when she gets to the department store the next day. Mrs. Sommers forgotten to eat any luncheon at all because she was so focused on taking care of her kids and the rest of the house all morning. Mrs. Sommers is getting stronger at an empty bar in the store while she looks at a sale item called a line of silk hosiery. Mrs. Sommers loves a good deal, and even though the silk panties are way too expensive and fancy for a poor, normal woman like her, the elegant and delicate feel of them makes her want to buy them. Mrs. Sommers tells the shop worker that she is going to buy a black pair after looking at them for a little while longer. This first buy sets off a shopping spree that lasts for a while. It made Mrs. Sommers sad that her stockings seemed to be lost in the depths of her shabby old shopping bag. She is pulled away from the sale counter and toward the lift. Mrs. Sommers takes off her old cotton panties and puts on her new silk ones when she gets upstairs. She can't wait to enjoy her expensive new buy until she gets home. For the first time, maybe in years, Mrs. Sommers can forget about her housework and family duties, and she feels a strange but pleasant surge of relaxation. In her search for happiness, Mrs. Sommers keeps going and heads to the shoe area. This is where she enjoys having power over the critical clerk and ordering him around until she finds the perfect pair of new boots. Not long after that, Mrs. Sommers stops at the glove station and is given a lovely pair of kids. After that, she stops at a stall to buy 2 expensive magazines that make her think of the pleasant things she used to enjoy before she got married. Giving Mrs. Sommers a sense of worth and a sense of belonging, which she needs very much, is what the new purchases do. As she goes down the street, she happily carries her magazines and lifts her skirt to show off her stylish shoes. After spending the money that was supposed to be for her kids, Mrs. Sommers doesn't seem to feel bad about buying nice things for herself. Her thoughts on the kids don't seem to have crossed her mind at all afternoon. After all that shopping, Mrs. Sommers is really hungry, but she hesitates to walk up to a restaurant because she's afraid that her lower social class will keep her out of such a fancy place. After going inside, Mrs. Sommers can take it easy while she orders a fancy lunch of oysters, lamb chop, wine, cake, and coffee. Mrs. Sommers finally goes to the theater with only a few coins left. She goes to see a great play with brilliantly dressed women who only go to these events to show off their latest clothes and be seen in them. The gaudy women treat Mrs. Sommers like one of them, probably because her new clothes hide who she is and what class she is, and she enjoys being with them. When the play is over, Mrs. Sommers feels like her dream is over. As Mrs. Sommers rides home in a cable car, she secretly has a poignant wish that her trip will never end.
About the author. Catherine O'Flaherty was born in 1860. Her father, Thomas O'Flaherty, was Irish and moved to the United States in 1823 to avoid the persecution that Irish Catholics were facing at the time. Kate grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. Kate went to Sacred Heart, a boarding school for girls, when she was 5 years old. There, she was taught by nuns until her father died in a train accident. When Thomas died, Kate's mother got the whole family estate. She became a very wealthy widow in a short time. Kate moved back home, but she went back to Sacred Heart from time to time as a child and made lasting friendships with the girls she met there. After she got married to Oscar Chopin, Kate went to New Orleans, Louisiana. Their 6 children were born between 1871 and 1879, and the Chopins lived in comfort in a big house. When Oscar died suddenly and sadly in 1882, he left Kate with a huge amount of debt. Kate's mother died not long after they moved back to St. Louis. Chopin started writing fiction after experiencing depression and a financial crisis. Chopin's work was being published in well-known papers and periodicals by the 1890s. Critics from all over the country mostly liked Chopin's work, but she did get sharp criticism for how she portrayed women, which was considered too radical at the time.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.